every day, but all of us have definitely read a magazine or a newspaper article at some point of time at least. But not many of us actually know where all that information is coming from. So let's see how different journalists gather their information in different ways. According to Bruce Garrison, a professor in the School of Communication at the University of Miami, it has been argued that the internet has permanently changed the ways people communicate as well as how they locate information they need in their daily lives. The internet has had similar impact on mass communicators. Journalists among them have seen their information gathering and distribution methods altered in the past decade. As a result, scholars and practitioners alike proclaim that journalism will never be the same. Journalists frequently go to the web to find local, state, and federal government information. They also turn to the web to search for other information and use search engines. Furthermore, research has shown they use the web to locate background about businesses, identify potential sources, and provide depth and context in their coverage. While most of them use the World Wide Web, a journalist working at the ABC News said, having worked at a network TV news division, the average national TV news journalists develop stories from more focused publications and adapt them from the national audience, like for instance, taking a local story with national import or a topic-specific story and broadening its scope. A lot of the story discovery then happens in the newswire and on the web. Journalists who originate the stories tend to work narrow beats, cultivating sources and paths over a period of time. They find stories by observing processes, talking to people, and being members of local industrial or interest communities. Now introducing the government and relating it to the journalists, there are a number of different legal protections for sources and source material. These include state shield laws, federal and state constitutional provisions, and common law privileges. Under the state legislative protection, more than 30 U.S. states currently have shield laws that provide some level of protection for journalists and others who gather information for dissemination to the public. The first state shield law was enacted in Maryland on April 2, 1896, in response to imprisonment of a Baltimore Sun reporter for refusing to reveal a confidential source to a grand jury. The scope of shield law protection varies from state to state, with the primary differences revolving around what kind of information the law protects, who is entitled to the protection, and the strength of the protection. At the federal legislature, the Congress did consider a shield law but did not pass the proposed law. However, the Privacy Protection Act is a federal law that protects you with regard to search warrants. In closing, while an investigative journalist might work for years to develop sources in government or other sensitive places, gaining trust and ultimately exposing controversial behavior, a technology reporter might generate a story by attending technology events and carrying on conversation with other attendees. Most established journalists eventually begin to receive story pitches from all sorts of people, from readers to publicists. This becomes another source for stories, though the extent to which this channel is cultivated depends greatly on the journalist and their style. So, no real rules here. Good journalists will be able to spot a story wherever they may encounter one. And most often, this will happen where least expected. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice work.